Thank you guys for letting us crash your house. We're in the middle of a sermon series on parental guidance, and we were thinking of who would be the best people to talk to, and you all came to mind immediately. So thank you guys, first of all, for letting us come.
We are thrilled to get to be honored to talk with you guys, and we're always excited to encourage couples. That's our heart.
Well, thank you. We only have 2 kids, and so we struggle at times to be able to maintain a household and to put God in the center of that, and frustration, chaos, all the things that come in with that. And I'll be honest with you, the first time I heard all of your kids started with the letter J, I didn't know how you guys kept them straight. But now after having 2 kids, sometimes I just call out my dog's name because I get so frustrated. So at least with everybody with J, if you call out one name, at least somebody's going to listen. So we thank you guys again for letting us come in. One of the things that we're trying to understand this week in our sermon series is the Ephesians chapter 5 passage at the end of Ephesians chapter 5 and going into chapter 6 where Paul talks to us about how to order a household. Of how we can do that in a godly way. Can you guys just share how you guys have been able to use that passage and other passage even that of doing that to be able to help just order your house in a godly way?
Yes. Well, our goal is to have a godly home where we raise our children to love the Lord and to serve each other and to have servants' hearts and for them to realize that the world doesn't revolve around them. And one of the most important parts of that is really trying to keep up with our children's hearts by having heart-to-heart talks with them on a regular basis, and then keeping up not only with their outward actions, but what's going on. If you see something happening, like they're starting to have a attitude change or something like that, asking them, hey, is there something that's gone on that you haven't told mom and dad about? And for the children to know that they have a safe place to share their heart is priceless, and that we're not going to make whatever they tell us a prayer request at church next week. Sure. And for them to know that they can share anything with us and that we won't be shocked, but that we'll pray with them, we love them no matter what they've done, or maybe they've had a friend kind of influence them the wrong way. And it's just so important for them to know that they can talk to mom and dad anytime.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I really think it's all about relationships. It is our relationship, number one, to the Lord and then to each other. And I tell my children often, there's one of my favorite hymns is nothing between. Mm-hmm. My soul and the Savior, keep the way clear, let nothing between. And then as we are focusing on making sure that our heart is right before our Lord, then this direction, just always keeping the lines of communication open and purposing to clear up offenses, because we're not perfect. We make mistakes every day, and you multiply that 19 times over, and there are many opportunities in our home for us to humble ourselves and just ask forgiveness for the things that we have said that weren't loving, or and always encouraging each other to draw closer to the Lord. I think that relationship of just encourage one another and build each other up, and to point each other to be more like Jesus every day. I think that's our heart's desire, and we want to teach our children that by example, really, by follow me as I follow Christ.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
How do you do that with such grace and patience? Only having 2 kids, I find myself getting stressed or overwhelmed at times, and wanting to be short with my children, or my frustration comes through. But it just seems like you always have so much grace with your kids and patience.
Boy, that is the word. I think you hit it right on the nail, Jordan. God's grace is sufficient, and we receive that grace as we are humble. He says, I will resist the proud, but I will give grace to the humble. And I think when we're dealing with each other or our children, we always need to approach that relationship with humility, just like we do the Lord. And so those times when you feel that anger rising, because it'll come when they do exactly the opposite of what you ask them to do, and you're like, what are you thinking? And you feel that, rising up in you. I know the Lord has really convicted me, gave me the verse, a soft answer turns away wrath. And I think years ago, I was so convicted about that. And I remember crying in front of all my kiddos and just asking them to forgive me that I had failed so miserably. Mm-hmm. And I said at that point, by God's grace, I wanted to have victory over that angry spirit and to really bring that under the power of God's Spirit. And many opportunities to practice that every day around here of lowering, even whispering when I feel that anger coming, to really just cry out to the Lord, send up a flare prayer at that moment, and then really choose to lower my voice and to whisper. If I have to, sit on the floor next to a little one that's throwing a fit laid out on the floor, and just get down at their level and whisper in their ear and talk to them and encourage them to do what's right. And I think in relationships, it really is. It's that grace. It's my life verse. My rhema, my life verse from the Lord is 2 Corinthians 12:9. And he said unto me that my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength, that's his strength, is made perfect in weakness. And we all have those weaknesses. So then I say back to him, most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I never really had an anger problem until we started having kids. Sometimes kids will do just the opposite of what you tell them, and it does. It makes you very, we call it frustrated. But I remember one day I went out to the garage, and my boys were out there spray painting the floor and just having a good old time, And so, but one year I went to a homeschool conference, and a dad was talking about how he had an anger problem. And one day he came in, and he had blown up, and then his daughter came to him and said, Daddy, would you please pray about your anger problem? And he said it just really smote him, and he really started thinking about that. And so he went and asked God to forgive him. And then he went and asked God to help him with this. And he went back to his family and apologized. But then he went a step farther, and he went and asked his family to actually hold him accountable. And if they saw him starting to raise his voice or talk with sharp words or maybe an angry spirit, he gave them permission to go and to come up to him and to put their hand on his arm and say,
Dad, I think you're kind of getting angry.
And so I came home from that conference, and I purposed to do the same thing. Ask my family to forgive me and really to allow them to help hold me accountable. And I'm not 100% there, but I would say it's really helped a lot of me humbling myself before my family. This is a struggle and a challenge. And then I'd say our kids have really, I'd say they have pretty mild spirits, I think, because they see their mom choosing to talk with a soft voice, their dad trying to, and
we've walked past their rooms many a time, and we have heard one of them say to another, hey, I think you're kind of getting upset. And the other one's like, yeah, you're right. Thank you. And I think we can do that for each other. That's a real friend, is someone that's going to share, those moments when you need it the most and be honest with you in love, and
right.
So I think
'Cause you can
we need each other.
yes, you can take your children to church, like 6 times a week, but then if you're actually blowing up and getting angry at them, it's going to build a wall between you and your kids.
And it'll just undermine everything that you are desiring to teach them. And so it really is a very important thing to deal with anger.
And then making sure that we go back and apologize, and not just saying sorry, but saying, I was wrong for getting angry. I was wrong for not handling this situation right. Will you please forgive me?
That modeling is so powerful for them, because when they see you do it and then they model it with each other, you've seen how it changes their spirit. They have the meek spirit. And that's powerful.
Well, I can only imagine with 19 kids and counting how chaotic it can get around here sometimes with all the fun and games and everything else. But how do you keep a balance with that and keep an organized household? Maybe it's organized chaos, but how do you keep an organized household and keep everybody safe at the same time? What's some practical advice you can give to parents who may feel overwhelmed with just the chaos of a house and everything that has to go on, to be able to just maintain their sanity even?
Well, early on, I realized that the home was Michelle's jurisdiction. And so when she needs home repairs done, whatever, she comes to me. But as far as her organizing and all that, I've left that up to her. And I just do whatever I can to help her with that.
And he jumps in whenever I cry for help. He's really good about home repairs and getting more shelves added so we can keep things organized. And I think really keeping life simple is important, especially when you have young children, because everything is very urgent for them. There isn't anything that's not urgent for a young child. And I would say anywhere under the age of 8, 6 to 8, that would be considered young. And so if you are stressed out about your house being perfect, you need to get over that. Do not have a perfectionist mindset. You need to give that up. If you're military or whatever, just realize this is life. This is what they're going to remember. And you want them to enjoy being with you. You want them to enjoy coming home. And don't picture the here and now. Picture when they're grown and they have their children. Is this going to be a place that they're going to want to come back to? And as you keep that in the forefront of your mind, my goal has always been simple. The more simplified life can be, the easier things will go. And it's not always going to be organized and clean, but we're going to have fun. And I teach my little ones to help, to work alongside. So for instance, the laundry is always the challenge in any home. Laundry and dishes, you take those two places. If you can just manage those, that is a major task. And so for us, with as many as we have, we realized if I could have all the laundry in a central location and literally keep it there, not have dresser drawers and closets full when they were all young, so that I was constantly transferring things back and forth, it would simplify life. Everybody knew when they were ready to get their bath or their shower, they came to the laundry room, got their towel, got their clothes, went and got their shower and got ready. If they needed their clothes for the morning and they weren't getting their shower then, they would always pick out their clothes the night before and have them ready in their room. I didn't deal with clean laundry getting stuck in the dirty laundry because they never got it put back in the drawer, and it just made life simple. Now, that might not work for everyone, but for us, it was wonderful. And so really the goal was just don't find yourself running all the time to every occasion. And one other thing, and I just say this with all respect, we realized when our children were young that we needed to be there with them, training and loving on them. And so we realized we needed to give up some of the responsibilities outside of our home for a little while and to really focus on being a family. And even when they were young, we made our ministry a family ministry. And so we might go and pick up the rocks in the churchyard as a family. There were jobs that we could do together with little ones, but we didn't find ourselves going on youth trips and being, reaching out in ways like that because we had a responsibility before God to really reach the heart of our little ones. And so we found that was really helpful to just keep life simple and try to limit the time that you're out of your home when they're young so that you can really focus on establishing the schedule, orderliness, and training and teaching them. And then when they get older, oh my, you are going to have a ministry team and you all are going to love you're going to have that sweetness of we're a team and we're in this together, and that ministry mindset is going to be there, and you're going to go out and do great mighty things.
What about decluttering the home?
That is a major challenge too. Yes,
We're about due right now, but-
constantly we are. I've said we have things continually coming in, and we must always have a sack or a box continually ready to go out because it never fails. Somebody's outgrowing their shoes. They can't fit into that or whatever, and we will pass it on and share. We share with other friends that have little ones. I figure, we just can't keep everything. And I have one box for my children that is their keepsake box, and they know all those treasures that are like forever keepsakes will go in that box. But when the box gets full, before I put the lid on it and pack it away,
You're done.
I have them come and they have to sort through that box to determine what's truly the keepsake and what's just, something that's not. It's taking up a lot of space. And we just try to downsize and keep it simple in that regard too. And so, decluttering is happening on a regular basis. We may only get one closet, one drawer in the kitchen accomplished in, a 15-minute time chunk that we might have. But we all work together, and I can always tell one of my kids, okay, it's time to go clean out the coloring cabinet and get that organized, and just keep up with little by little.
How do you differentiate roles in the family with teaching your kids submissiveness that the Bible teaches, and what age do you start their chores and their responsibilities, and how do you incorporate that so that they know that's just a part of life and what God kind of expects of us?
Right. Well, I think with the little ones, I start when they're tiny, as far as Joe's, who now is 4, but when she couldn't even barely talk, I was teaching her about honoring each other, and I always give illustrations, and I move my hands a lot, and I'm very expressive with them because they connect with that. And so I would teach them, I would say, you younger ones are to submit, and I would show them what that means to the elder in the sense of showing them respect and honor, so that when they say to you, oh, Josie, don't do that, Mom and Daddy said that they don't want you to do that, then you quickly obey and honor. Yes, ma'am. Yes, brother. Yes, sister, I'll do that, And don't be willful or stubborn, because they know if they're willful and stubborn, when brother or sister tries to remind them to do what's right, that they know they'll be hearing from mommy or daddy if they don't honor them.
Yeah.
And teaching that honor and respect has been such a valuable thing, because when they're interacting with the older ones, they learn to respect what's theirs is theirs, and what's their brothers and sisters is theirs. So even respecting their things, if it's not yours, don't touch it. You ask permission before you touch something that's not yours, and they're still in training. The 4-year-old is still learning that concept. But it keeps the older ones from being frustrated that they are not being respected. And so I think their struggles are usually in a family where you've got an older one. I always teach the older ones the point that they have to be doing that in love for their best good. It's not, you're in my way, you're irritating me, and so because I'm impatient and frustrated with you, get out of my way. Because if that's ever the attitude, then they realize they have a higher responsibility before God to have the sweetness and the love that God tells them to have. Because the one that is older, God requires more of them in that relationship. And so when they're being impatient, I usually will take them aside, or Dad, and we will explain to them, what, God is giving you a place in this one's life. They love you. They admire you. They look up to you. They want to be like you. And when you are being impatient with them, you're giving them the message of, what, you're not valuable to me. You're in my way. And how would you want to be treated if that were you? Is that the way that you would want Mom and Dad to treat you? And so by putting it back in their ballpark and making them realize, I have a responsibility before God to be a mentor and a leader for this little one. And many a times I think they are already broken before. They already realize, and they'll be the ones that'll go back and apologize to the younger one for not being patient and getting upset with them for breaking their favorite necklace or whatever it was that the little one, was being, stubborn.
Why don't you explain
about.
maybe how you organize the different jurisdictions too of the home,
Okay.
different chores and stuff.
Yeah.
We saw your signs, the jurisdiction signs.
Yes, that was my sweet Jessa did that, because she is such an organizer. And so the last time we gave out our jurisdictions are a certain area of our home or our life that we'll just kind of make sections or areas and say, okay, you're going to learn how to master this now, and when they're old enough. When they're young, I would let them help fold socks and towels, and that would be their jurisdiction. They could gather the laundry. And then as they got a little older, I would let them work with chemicals and teach them how maybe to wipe down the counter in the bathroom and keep their area clean around their bed and different things like that. And so they know every day on their checklist that they are responsible in the morning, first thing after they wake up, get dressed, have their quiet time, they go and clean their jurisdiction and get it spiffed up and ready for the day. And then we do it again at 4:30 before dinner before Dad gets home so that
Great
we can
idea.
at least walk through the hallway or get in the door, after playing with the toys and having things scattered around. We know we need to do it at least
And
twice.
from the time they're small, though, we try to get the young ones to even carry their own weight. It might be throwing away a diaper, or it might be that when they're big enough to carry out a trash bag, to take it out and to take it out.
And because we have a lot of kiddos, it works out fun in the fact that they can have a team now. We've got buddy teams. And so like there might be an older one teamed up with a few younger ones. And so the older one may do the major work in their jurisdiction, like the kitchen, for instance. They'll do the glass dishes and putting things in the oven, but the younger ones on their team will help them peel or scrub potatoes or open up the cans and bring all the supplies in for the food when they're preparing a meal. And they have fun getting to be a part of all that jurisdiction.
That's awesome.
So they're learning, and the older ones get the fun of getting to mentor them and teach them. And they say you really learn when you teach. And so I have seen that to be the case because my younger children now, I was the one that trained the bigger ones. And it seemed like, it would take me about 3 or 4 times of going over like the steps to clean the bathroom. But when those children are teaching the younger children, they catch it just like that. And I'm like, I cannot believe that. It's like they're just soaking up like a sponge because it's so much more fun getting to learn from
They
an
speak their
older
lingo,
sibling.
yeah.
They do,
Exactly.
yeah.
So we try to teach our 2 kids first-time obedience. We try not to count to 3 or give them multiple chances, and we teach them that there's a reason for that. Not only because it's what mom and dad say, but it honors God when they obey us the first time, and they have that honor and respect you talked about. And our 4-year-old even says, slow obedience is disobedience. So that's actually what she tells her brother when he's not doing it. She says, slow obedience is disobedience. So we just wanted feedback from y'all on how you deal with obedience and disobedience and discipline with your kids.
Right. Well, I think the 4 points of obedience we've taught my kiddos from the time they were little so that they would know what's expected and why. And I say to them, as you learn to be attentive, that's the first character quality that I teach my little ones is attentiveness. Then as you hear my voice, my prayer is that you will hear God's voice someday and honor and obey him instantly. And so the 4 points of obedience are instant, cheerful, thorough, and unconditional. So I can go through those, lists with them, and when they hear that, the first time I say it, you obey it. And they can quote that with mommy, and we practice, yes, ma'am, I will obey you. The cheerful, whenever mama says, I want you to go and get your clothes and bring them over here and put them in the dirty clothes, then, it's that first time obedience. And
Saying, yes, ma'am, I'd be happy to.
yes, ma'am, I'd be happy to. And we had a little chart on the wall where we would give them little marks for every time they'd say, yes, ma'am, and yes, ma'am, I'd be happy to. And so there was a yes, ma'am chart. And when they would get so many marks, then they would get like a timeout. You get to go with mom or dad or have a special timeout and just praising them for good character. So attentiveness, obedience, and self-control, those 3 things I think were the main ones that we really wanted to focus on for their heart when they're little. And by teaching them that they can practice self-control, the 3rd point, of the character quality of being able to sit quiet and still and practice that for 5 minutes and praising them when they, I'm standing right beside them, but they're learning, don't touch or stay still, don't put your feet on the floor, sit in a chair and look at the book and be quiet and still, and all of those training opportunities. I think the difference that we have learned through the years is that if we train our children, instead of expecting them to just know what we want, training them means we take opportunities like to play the obedience game. We would do that in the evenings, sometimes at Bible time, where we would have the little ones that were in training more than the older ones to say, like we might say to Jackson, for example, Jackson, I want you to run over to the table touch the table, run back over here, jump up and down 10 times, and then touch my hand and sit back in your chair. And so by teaching him that game, just playing it, everybody's watching him. So whenever he does it, then he comes back, we were all going, yay, Jackson, awesome. Wow, that is great obedience. It's fun, but they're learning by us teaching, training them. And so that when the time comes and we're out in a place where there's a lot of traffic or there's a crowd, and I say, Jackson, come here, please. They know quickly that's the response. Yes, ma'am, I'm coming, because I've trained them to quickly, instantly obey. And now, of course, when they're in training, it might not always happen that nicely or perfectly, but we always are practice obey. I always say practice obey mommy, and so we're learning that is that training process of teaching them. And when we do that, when we train them, we will find that as we are praising them for that good, godly character in their life, that they are working hard and allowing God to build into them, then we're not going to find us having to correct them as much, because we want to disciple them along. That's discipline, discipling them in life to love God and to honor the Lord in everything that we say and do. And that means to obey, the scriptures. They hear them when we're talking, sitting there in a time of correction. What did you do that was wrong? Why are you in trouble? And getting them to confess that, I was disobedient and I didn't obey you the first time you said, come here, and then helping them to ask forgiveness. I was wrong for not obeying you, and will you forgive me? And then we hug and love, and then they go away with a clear conscience, knowing that they're forgiven and a clean slate, and we start all over again, and we practice. But if I don't deal with the disobedience quickly, it builds up in their heart, and they're continually being naughty, looking for ways to just get into trouble. And so I think we'll find we will not be correcting as much if we are training and praising them for that good character.
Right, and I'd say also our goal as a family is to praise our children 10 times more than we correct. And so instead of having a negative atmosphere all the time, actually just anytime we see them do anything good, praising them and praise their character.
Yeah.
And as we praise their character, like, John, I really appreciate you taking the trash out without even being asked.
And for Joe's in the potty training, Josie, I am so excited for you that you practiced self-control the first time. You knew you needed to go potty. You stopped what you were doing when you were playing and you ran and got on the potty, because we memorize the character qualities that are on our website at duggarfamily.com. We have those character qualities. There's like 49. And so Josie knows self-control. We say together, instant obedience to the initial prompting of God's Spirit. And when we're potty training, it's very important. I tell her, I said, you know that first time that you start wiggling, you need to go potty. So you instantly obey and you stop what you're doing and you run. And so I think we can praise them for them practicing good character from the time they're tiny.
Yeah.
And they love to please the Lord and please their older siblings and mom and dad when they're being encouraged.
And the more we
in that
praise them,
praise.
the more good character they
They-
exemplify.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of creates a deal where they want to please mom and dad and do what's right.
You all have somewhat touched on this already, and I know it's not just one thing. I know it threads through everything that we've talked about thus far, but what's the greatest thing, I guess, you want to leave with your children? And how do you get them there to that? How do you give them that?
Well, I think we both agree. We've said if we could teach our children two things before they're grown and out of our home, we tell them you'll be a success if you do these two things. Number one, you love God with your whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then number two, you love others and you look for ways to serve those around you. And if you do those two things, no matter what vocation, whatever skills you need to gain in life, wherever you go, if you will focus on those two things, you will be a success. And I think we pray for our children, our family, everyone from Grandma Duggar, all the way down to baby Marcus, our grandbaby, everyone that's in our life and our immediate family, that just at the end of our life, God would say of each one of us, as he said of Job, that they feared God and they eschewed, they hated evil. And I think as we just love the Lord and thank him for all that he's given us in Christ, that love for the Lord motivating us to love others and forgive others the way that we've been forgiven, then truly we're going to be a success no matter where we go or what we do. That's going to be the focus in life. And I think our acrostic that we like is joy. Jesus first, others second, and yourself last. And if you do that, your home will be a haven, and it will be a refuge from the world and a place where your family can enjoy being together and spending time together, and they'll want to come home.
Yeah. And just to add in a little bit, I just encourage husbands and fathers really to be the spiritual leaders of the home, to really just to purpose to have a family Bible time each night. And it might be just read 2 or 3 verses, it might be reading a whole chapter, but read the verses and then try to explain how that applies to everyday life. And maybe giving illustrations of something you've seen or whatever. But the Bible is unique compared to television will show somebody doing something bad and getting by with it. But the Bible shows a lot of illustrations of people that maybe do something wrong and then they reap the consequences, or somebody doing what's right and God blesses them. And that's really the way it is. And so as our children see that, they see mom and dad loving the Lord. And I think it's also important for the husband not to be lording over the wife and being this dictator for the family, but for the husband to really honor his wife and to love her and to treat her like a queen. And I try to just let Michelle know that I love her and cherish her. And our love for the Lord and our love for each other really is our foundation for raising children. And when the children know that mom and dad love each other and they're committed to each other till death do them part, then that creates a security in the children that they know that hey, God loves us. We're going to try to work together as a team. And it's amazing what a family can do when they all work together as one in the Lord.